All right, today I'm still doing angle pair relationships with parallel lines being cut by a transversal. These examples are going to be a little bit more complicated compared to the ones we did yesterday. Yesterday was more about like just getting some basics on how you set them up and solve for X or find your missing angle measurement. These are going to be a little bit more involved. So here's my diagram. I have two parallel lines cut by a transversal. And here are my angle measurements right here. So I have a 5x plus 55 degrees. I have a 2x plus 100 degrees. There's my angle 2. So this question wants to know what is the measure of angle 2. So angle 2 is right there. That's what we're trying to figure out the measurement for. So one of the main things you got to pay attention to, I always look at things in terms of where they're placed. Placement does mean a lot. So if things correspond in the same position, they're congruent to each other. So this one sits in the same spot as this one. See how they kind of sit in the bottom right? This one sits in the bottom right. If you look at this as 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4 again, they both correspond to each other. So if they correspond to each other, they're going to be congruent to each other. So those are the ones that you set equal to each other. All right, so since those two are congruent to each other, that means you can, that means you can set them equal to each other. So I have a 5x plus 55 is equal to a 2x plus 100. And then we basically just solve for x. I can get this one over there. I can subtract 2x, right? So that gives me a 3x plus 55 is equal to 100. I can normally do this in one step, but I'm just trying to show like one step at a time what I'm doing. That positive 2x becomes a negative 2x. I subtract, there's the 3x. 55, drop it down, equal sign, drop it down, 100 comes down. All right, now I can basically come this way and subtract the 55. And so if I subtract that, I end up getting 45. And 3x is equal to 45. Divide both sides by 3, then that means 3 times 15 is 45. So x has to be 15. Any questions there? So you got x is equal to 15. Remember, this is not the answer. The question was, what is the measure of angle 2? So we have to figure out the angle measurements first, then we can figure out the one that they want us to give us the answer for, all right? All right, so x is equal to 15. That means I can plug in my 15 there. 5 times 15 is 75, plus the 55 that's sitting right there. That should give me 130. All right, so this angle is 130. If this angle is 130, so is this angle. So if that's 130, remember these two sit on top of the line. When you sit on top of a line, your total should always hit 180. So if that's 130, then this needs to be 50 to complete that, all right? So 130 plus another 50 is 180. That means angle 2 is worth 50 degrees. And kind of just like yesterday, I think yesterday I mentioned, if you are doing these types of problems, a lot of times it's two major things that happen most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. Either you're going to be setting two values or quantities equal to each other, or you might be adding those quantities up to get 180. That happens a lot when you're dealing with parallel lines and transversals. Based on where they're placed, you know if they're equal to each other. Based on where they're placed, you know if you're going to add them up to 180. The diagram that I have here, because of the placement, they're equal to each other, and that's why I set them equal to each other here. Now, solving an equation, I'm not going to go into solving equations in this lesson. I'll probably do that later on when I get to some algebra stuff. But when you set these up and solve the equation, you get your x is equal to 15. Please always make sure you understand if that's what the question wants you to give as your solution. All right. So 15 is what we get for X, but angle 2 is what we're really looking for. You have to come through that 15 to figure this degree measurement out, though. So now that I know what the 15 times 5 plus 55 is equal to, which is 130, that's when I can cross it back over, and now I can look at this as one quantity that's equal to 180. This plus angle 2 should be 180. If that's the case, this plus 50 is 180. So remember, everything happens because you have to know what your facts are. If you know what your facts are, you know what your definitions are. They should always line up and they should be true. Anytime you hit a false statement, that means either there's a miscalculation or you set something up wrong because you weren't thinking about the right rule at the right time. So make sure you check out my YouTube channel. I do a video every day I come to work on one thing. I try to focus on one topic at a time. I'm ranging from anything from elementary mathematics all the way up to advanced placement calculus, anything in between. Check out the channel, drop comments. I'll redo lessons if I need to. If things don't make sense, I'll try to figure out another way to explain it or demonstrate it or whatever I need to do. All this is all part of what I'm trying to do to help improve scores. Like when it's all said and done, that's just one of the things that we do in education. We give information, we assess the information, we look at data, right? I'm not a big fan of the way that works. It causes a lot of stress for the students. That stress prevents them from learning sometimes, but I'm just doing what I can to help improve the situation.